provide what our graduates do. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little mixed up at the start of this. So we have traditional classes. Our classes are relatively small, especially the graduate classes, and there's lectures and you take exams. We also have small laboratory courses where there'll be 10 or 12 students where you do an awful lot of hands-on work in small groups. The third thing we do, and I think this is the best part of our program, my opinion, is research. So you'll be paired with a faculty mentor and you'll spend 2 years working in his or her lab. You'll work a lot in that lab and you'll produce a final thesis or a final paper that may contribute to a publication. That's where you actually learn how to do science, how to think about it, how to analyze experimental data, and how to actually do the experiments. The last thing I want to include is that our students do all sorts of things on graduation. Generally speaking, they're really successful. A guy from my lab is entering pharmacy school next year. Another student 2 years ago went to vet school, so she's just finished her second year. Some people get jobs, so I've got one student who just finished working in the lab and she's working in a hospital. A second student is working with a group managing clinical trials. So the foundation is broad and it prepares you for really a variety of opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Rich. Another question is, what academic and or work experience do prospective students need for your program?
So the question is academic experience and work experience. Academically, we want you to be a biology major. So you really have to have the standard courses in a biology curriculum, which includes cell biology and genetics. It includes organic chemistry, a full year, hopefully. Biochemistry is great, although you can take that here. There's, and then the second component is research. So it's really great if you've worked in a research lab, maybe for a semester or a year, or best case of all, 2 years. Some people come after they've worked for a while, so that's great too. Work experience is really good. It shows us that you know how to work, and graduate school is a lot about work. Next.
Yes, this question is regarding the application process. What can prospective students do to strengthen their applications, and what should they avoid in those applications?
Okay, so I guess I'll talk about the best candidate, and nobody is really the best candidate. But our best candidates have a GPA above 3, so the higher the better, of course, but 3 is sort of a cutoff. We do accept some students that are below 3, but that should be your target. That's a 3.0 GPA. The other thing that we really look for is research experience or work experience. It's really great if you've worked in a research lab or you've worked as a technician after your bachelor's degree for a year or 2 or 3, and you want to make yourself more competitive for advancement at work or maybe a career change. So research experience can be in a chemistry lab or a biology lab or a biochemistry lab. We're really not fussy about that. What we're most interested in is that you've been involved in the process, and that by no means means that we assume you'll go after a long-term career in research. Some people do, some people don't. But our candidates are evaluated based on research experience, that's 1. GPA, your performance in your undergraduate degree, that's 2. And then the third thing that I've not talked about yet is your GRE or some other exam. So those are the 3 sort of legs on the stool. Not every student has a really stable stool. Some have one leg that's maybe shorter than the others, and that's okay. We still encourage you to apply, and we don't evaluate on one aspect. It's really all 3 legs of the stool. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. To dovetail on the last question regarding the application process, whom should applicants ask for letters of recommendation, and what should those letters include?
So letters of recommendation. We want someone who knows you. So if you're taking my course that I teach to the undergraduates, which is anatomy and physiology, and there's 300 students, Even if you really enjoyed the course or scored an A, that might not be your first choice. If you don't have other choices and you're in my lab, then I might be able to write a stronger letter. But when we sit on the committee and we evaluate your application, best case scenario, you worked in somebody's lab and he or she has known you for a year. They've seen you grow. They can evaluate your ability to think in complicated problems as opposed to tests, and they know a little bit of something about your character and your work ethic. That's the best case. And then there's everything in between. There's really small classes with labs. There's a supervisor at a job that's off campus. You know, and they can really attest to your ability to show up on time, to come every day, ready to work, and to evaluate your future potential, because that's really what we're looking at, not what you were like a couple years ago. We're really wondering, how are you going to perform over the next 2 years while you're at Brockport, and then hopefully in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Rich. What is the educational experience for students in your program?
So, educational experience. I think that every single student that comes to Brockport, undergraduate or graduate, considers the faculty to be friendly, and we certainly fit that bill in biology. We're really focused on student success. We want you to do well, and we're accessible. You know, we all have open doors, and we talk to students quite a lot. So I would say that's the first part of the academic experience that is really the lasting part that you remember after you leave. Aside from that, all of our faculty are actually using in their research labs modern research techniques. We all publish papers as fast as we can, which is not as fast as we'd like to. And we work in the lab all summer and even over the winter intersession, as well as during the academic year. We're pretty good teachers. We are organized, and our students are generally happy. And we come from good places. We all have pretty good training. So I think that, to summarize, I'm rambling a little, the academic experience would be, we're friendly and accessible. Challenging. I think our courses are rigorous, but they're not over the top. If you get accepted, we absolutely expect you have the ability to succeed. And I think that, again, the most significant academic experience, our classes are good, and they're comparable or as good as or better than other places, but what you really get at Brockport is working side by side with a faculty mentor. You're going to learn a lot. You'll be engaged in authentic research experience, and whether you become a medical doctor, a pharmacist, or you go to graduate school, these are the skills that are going to give you something to talk about during your interview, and they're going to give you something to really market yourself with.
Thank you, Dr. Rich. What are the academic specialties of your faculty, and what opportunities do graduate students have to work directly with those faculty?
So I'm going to answer the second part first. Every single accepted graduate student has the opportunity to work with faculty. In fact, it's a required part of the degree, so you never get accepted if there's no opportunity. We will look at your application carefully. We will think about who you will do research with. It is really in your best interest to call ahead, to look on our webpage at our research interests, to maybe do a Google search or a PubMed search and find out what we've published on, maybe what grants we have, and what we're actually doing. Then you'll know, and then contact us and find out if there's room in the lab. To get back to the first part, what do? I'm a physiologist. I study gastrointestinal motility and the regulatory mechanisms involved in those processes. We have another physiologist on faculty, Bernardo Ortega, and he studies the kidney and how it regulates magnesium balance in the body. We have two molecular geneticists. One uses a Drosophila model. The other uses a yeast model, both really accomplished scientists. We've got a neurobiologist who studies olfaction and the development of the receptors for smell. We have a cell biologist, an enormously productive and popular lab that studies obesity and metabolism and focusing on a specific G protein coupled receptor. And of course, we have a microbiologist, and Dr. Peltier studies protein expression and the life cycle of a particular organism that causes sleeping sickness, these Trypanosome brucei, I believe. So we have really broad-ranging interests in our faculty. Everybody uses the modern molecular techniques. Some of us work with animals, some of us work with other organisms, or even not a whole organism, a cell.
Thank you. I have a question regarding professional development. How does your program prepare students for professional employment and or PhD study?
So that's a great question, and I think we do a great job at preparing students for a future in graduate school or future employment. Many of our students go on to PhD programs. There's one now who's going to school in Colorado. The way we prepare you for that is we provide the solid foundation in the classroom that's really a broad base, so you're really stable and you can go off in any direction you choose. But more specifically, we give you the skills to actually do experiments with your hands, and we give you the skills to design the experiment and then to analyze it with your head. I would say the most important thing is troubleshooting. You've all heard that a whole bunch of experiments don't work and a few work. The smartest people and the best prepared people know how to deal with those experiments that don't work, and you will absolutely learn that here. So everyone that enters the graduate program, regardless of the plan, works in a research lab. Some more, some less, and you will learn how to do things in a real life, actual environment. This is authentic. You won't have an answer to the questions you ask. You're going to design the experiments and do something that no one has ever done before. That's going to help you if you go into a PhD program. It's going to help you if you get a job. If you get a job as an editor, you'll understand how the process works. If you get a job as a teacher, you'll understand where that information in the textbooks came from. If you, no matter what you do, just as a citizen, you'll know how to evaluate all of these studies that you read about in the newspapers and in popular magazines. It is that research in your faculty mentor's lab where you're going to develop those skills.
Thank you. You touched on this a bit before, but we're going to re-explore here. What are some specific examples of the varied careers your graduates have pursued, and how did your program prepare those specific students for those careers?
Okay, so I really like this question because I get to brag about successful students. So let's start with the most recent student. He was in he just finished his master's degree, and I think in 3 weeks he's hopping in the car and going to Denver, Colorado. Andrew was really prepared with good courses, good faculty advisement. He did the hard work of getting good grades and really being studious and motivated. He worked in a research lab and did experiments. Some worked, some didn't. And he's presented that research at probably 5 or 6 different venues, both at meetings on campus and at local meetings in Rochester and at national meetings, and maybe traveling to Washington, D.C. I think he may have gone to a meeting in Montana. So the opportunity to do the research, to take the classes so he has this broad-based knowledge, and then to present that data is really what provided him the opportunity to be a really great applicant for graduate school. A student in my lab is in vet school now. The way that she was successful is doing the research, presenting at meetings, and improving her competitiveness by having the master's degree. Another student in my lab is going to pharmacy school just this year. He's just about to graduate. He was prepared because he really had 2 more years to really enhance his application, to learn more, to improve his GPA, and really just to present a better package to get into pharmacy school, which he didn't have 2 years ago. Well, another recent graduate, Brittany Hetherington, she's working in a clinical trials group. She was able to interview really well because we're always talking about research in the lab. She had something really significant to talk about. As an undergraduate, she never did research. So this really helped her to enhance her portfolio. So to sum that up, every student enhances their portfolio. They have 2 more years to mature. They have an MS, not a BS degree, and they really have something to talk about, and they can do it well. So is there anything else?
No, thank you, Dr. Rich.
Well, thanks for listening. I hope I've answered all your questions. If you have more questions, feel free to call, email, contact the graduate school, contact the biology department directly. We're definitely here to help, and I hope to meet you.